Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kershaw MMR.
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming here tonight. We really do appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the show. Hope you come back often, and hope you tell your friends about us so that they can join too. Walters has come out again this year with their 2022 scholarship program for model railroaders who are graduating high school and pursuing a degree in one of the STEM programs. So if you have kids, if you have grandkids, I hope you'll tell them about it, because it's a $2,500 scholarship. 2 of them are going to be awarded by Walters. And I really think that this is a great opportunity and a great program to number one, encourage young people to become model railroaders, to be able to qualify for things like this. And number two, to help the model railroaders to achieve a college education. So I really admire Walters for what they're doing, and encourage all of you to tell your graduating high school students or friends about the program, and they can contact Walters. We have complete information on our website, newtracksmodeling.com. And it's really a worthwhile program. It's the second year Walters has done it. With that said, I want to talk a minute here about the new show that we started Saturday called Scratch Building Workshop. Chris Blackmar is the person who moderates the show for us. And I'd like to play a short video to give you an idea of what the show is all about. So Chris, if you could run the video for us. Welcome to New Tracks Workshop. My name is Jim Kershaw. I'm the creator and host for New Tracks, where mentors help modelers build. Thanks so much for coming. I hope you come back often and tell your friends about our show. These Saturday workshops are a new project for New Tracks. They've resulted from comments I've received from modelers about scratch building and Chris Blackmar's interest in producing and leading this effort. The segments are structured like the popular build-along segments on our Wednesday evening shows, except these Saturday shows are designed to show modelers how to scratch build a model. I personally believe that scratch building is one of the most creative parts of model railroading, and I think you'll agree if you try it. Here is your opportunity to work with some skilled modelers to learn how to do it. You will learn the steps, the skills, the techniques involved in scratch building a model in any scale you want. There are no kits to buy, only the needed scratch building supplies. The plans that will be used for the model, you can download on your computer at no cost. The show's moderator, Chris Blackmar, is a very talented and artistic modeler, and he and his guest will guide you through the complete scratch building process, one small step at a time. After all, that's what mentoring is all about. If you're a beginner, I hope you'll join in and experience the thrill of completing a scratch-built model and being able to stand back and say, I built that. If you're a more experienced or advanced modeler, I hope you'll join in and offer your advice and knowledge to less skilled modelers, and even get some fresh ideas yourself. The live shows will, of course, be recorded on our YouTube channel, so you can refer to the information later if you need to. In addition, I hope you'll visit our website, newtracksmodeling.com, and subscribe. You'll need to confirm the email that you received to verify your address. And after that, you'll receive all of the notice of our future shows, as well as the login links to attend. If you would prefer to watch the series on YouTube, you can do that by going to our channel, New Tracks Modeling, ring the bell, and click all. Therefore, you'll get all of the notice for the start of all of our future shows on the channel. If you can spare a little time, I hope you'll consider joining our management team to help us plan and produce any of our future shows. Please contact me at jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com and let's discuss your interest. So welcome to the New Tracks Workshop. I look forward to seeing your finished models and of course hearing any suggestions for future shows you may have. Now, here is Chris Blackmar to start your scratch building journey. And with that, I'd like to ask Chris if he'd like to make some comments about the show.
Sorry about that. I dropped my mouse, everybody. I want to thank Jim for playing that introduction there. Kind of took me a little bit by surprise, but I'm a little bit late joining today. This past show, we kind of looked at doing some mock-ups and getting the templates cut out. We'll continue with the templates on the next show. We'll take a look at using the templates on the back and on the front, using them for cutting templates, using them as a backing, and then discussing the pros and cons of using them in the various different methods and what that may change in your subsequent steps as far as constructing the model and prepping the model. The other thing that we're going to get into discussing is what I call pins and needles, and we're going to be taking a look at some of the various tools to produce various textures in the materials, be they foam, wood, plaster, paper, or styrene. So please feel free to come and join us, and I look forward to your input and having those people along with us. I think we've got 4 people building the models right now, a couple of them in wood, one in styrene, and one in paper, I believe. So come and join us. Thank you, Jim.
Mm-hmm. And the show again is every Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I hope you'll attend them. I think that they're going to be really something that a lot of people are going to find interesting and hopefully helpful for their future modeling. Again, you've heard me talk about it time and time again. Right now, we have 17 people that are helping us on the management team to try to produce these shows each week. And we still need more help. So if you have a little time that you could devote to us, we sure would appreciate hearing from you. My email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. We picked up a couple of people recently, and we need a couple more. So if we can get a little bit of people to give a little bit of their time, we sure would appreciate it. Now I'd like to talk about two new segments that we're going to be starting pretty soon for the show. The first one is going to start April the 27th by Phil at home. And it's going to be about the NMRA local clubs and divisions. And Phil, would you like to talk about this a little bit?
Certainly, Jim, thanks. Yeah, so the idea here is to really kind of highlight the other side of mentoring, which is where mentoring happens with people physically. And see that being in 2 places, in clubs and in the NMRA divisions. So we're trying to get clubs and divisions to come in and talk about what they do to create environments for mentoring, to engage, et cetera. One thing I'd love to have everyone do is, if you have someone that you'd like to come talk about, if you're in a region or you're part of a club, get excited about it, please send me an email. I know a couple of people sent me emails before. Unfortunately, I didn't capture them. My email gets pretty crazy. If you'll send me an email, that'd be great. Also CC Jim on it as well. I'll put my email in the chat. And just the idea is about a 15-minute just discussion. It could be discussion about how they do events, how they do clinics, how they do education. If it's a club, it might be, you know, how they, for example, one of the clubs here has a scenery person, and all members kind of go through a scenery training where they come in and they actually work and kind of begin to understand the scenery standards and the methods to create kind of a uniform scenery on a layout. So I think those are all kind of ideas of how do we've spent 2 years being virtual. How do we begin to really rethink being physical? So anyway, if you have someone you'd like to have talk, please just give me a call or send it or drop me an email. I'll put that in the chat right now. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Phil. I really do appreciate you doing this for us, because I really think that having local help, having local mentoring is really important. That's how I learned an awful lot, and that's why we're doing this segment, is to try to get the mentoring on a local basis for everybody. Another program that we're going to be starting, this one's going to start October the 19th. This one is going to be headed up by Mark Pogendorf. He was on the show last week talking about his hobby shop, Pogies Trains, out in California. And Mark is a modeler. Mark is a hobby shop owner. And Mark is also a member of the National Retail Hobby Stores Association. So he clicks to me all the buttons that I was been looking for of the other place that I learned so much when I was trying to become a modeler. And that was at my local hobby shop. And that's what he's going to be talking with us about. And his subject really, it boils down to the local hobby shop, and it's important to modelers, and how the local hobby shops and modelers have so much in common, how they depend on each other. They used to depend on each other maybe more than they consider themselves right now, but there's no reason why that has to be. So I really appreciate Mark agreeing to do this. And again, that starts this October. More recent build-alongs that we have coming up, one starts tonight. Paul Reeves, who is the owner of Kershaw Models, is teaming up with Martin Breckbiel MMR to build his Stanwich bar in O-scale. March the 23rd, Bruce Nicholson, the owner of Seaport Model Works, is going to start building his kit of a waterline 53-foot coastal steam passenger ferry in HO scale. This is the first ship model builder that we've had on the show, and I hope that we can get more people in that hobby specifically, because I know that there are a lot of model railroaders who also are interested in that hobby. Frankly, the transfer of knowledge between the various hobbies, as you know, is something that we encourage knowledge about, and encourage the other people who are skilled in other hobbies to join us so that we can learn from them. On March the 30th, Rick and Marie Hunter are going to build their Hunterline 50-foot queen post covered bridge. Now this kit and the staining material that comes with the purchase is going to be in all four scales, N, HO, S, and O scales. And this will be the third time that Rick and Marie have been on our show building one of their models. And I really do appreciate their interest and commitment for doing this again. Starting April the 6th, Dave Vaughn, who owns Wit and Wisdom Models, is teaming up with Jim Murphy to build the John Armstrong inspired Dyna kit that he calls Nighthawks Cafe. There's a very famous painting made of this model that John Armstrong made many years ago. And this is really, in the hobby of model railroading, this is really one of the really knowledgeable premier model railroaders. And this is one of the great models that he's ever built. So I know that that's going to be interesting to a lot of people. And it's really great that Wit and Wisdom has come out with this model after all these years. May the 25th, Chris Corse, the owner of Conowingo Models, will be building one of his new kits. And that kit is going to be called, in my honor, I think, the Kello Trolley Station. And I really appreciate Chris doing that. And as soon as Chris gets the model finished and gets some information, then we'll have Chris on to talk about the Kello trolley station. But I do appreciate it so much, Chris. Starting June the 1st, Bill Banta, who owns Banta Model Works, is going to start a build along of one of his OM30 caboose kits. This is the first time we've had an OM30 model being built on the show. I doubt it'll be the last, but this will be the first one. And I really do appreciate Bill coming back because this will be the second one. If you remember, Clark Kooning MMR built one of Bill's kits not too long ago. July 13th, Earl Hackett is going to start doing a program on CAD design to build a bridge. And this is going to be a build along because the CAD program is going to be downloadable for free. And Earl is going to take you step by step. If you have never used a CAD program before, once you get through with Earl's training, you will be able to do it. So Earl, if you could comment on this program a little bit, I would appreciate it.
There we go. Yeah. Can I share screen with you?
Sure.
All righty. I'm going to show you there we are. This is the bridge we're going to be building. It looks complicated, but there's really you only have to build 5 parts. You have the main girders, your cross beams, your stringers, and the top and bottom lateral bracing. And that's it. So it looks complicated, but it's actually quite simple. And what I'm going to be using is a program called Fusion 360. It's from Autodesk. It's a free download. There's 2 versions of it. One is for hobbyists, which is free. And the other is for professionals, which is $500 a year as a subscription. The free one, it has everything a hobbyist would ever want to use. It's really pretty impressive. And I've never used it before. I just started learning it myself. And today I just finished up one of the main girders there. That's this big thing here. In a variety of, and filming it as I go along with screenshots. So next I'll go start building some of the other parts of it. And you'll see that I'm not an expert because you'll see the mouse flopping about all over the place. And that's just the way it is when you're learning. But what I hope to do, I'm not going to be an expert by July, but you'll have enough to go out and explore it yourselves and build useful models. There's a whole lot of stuff in it. And you just have to get used to the way it's presented to you on the screen. So there we go. You get that there, Jim?
I did. Thank you so much, Earl. I'm really looking forward to this. The other thing that I'll mention too, as with any 3D program, I'm understanding CAD program, they also do 2D on the front end. Earl is going to cover that so that if you're just using the 2D for just cutting out parts, you can also learn that along the way here. But I think I'm hearing there's an awful lot of people that are interested in 3D printing and in being able to do laser cutting. But it's the CAD problem. They just don't understand how to get what they want translated in CAD. And hopefully that's what Earl's going to address. So Earl, thank you so much for helping on this. I really do appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome, Jim.
Now I'd like to turn to the thing that's really close to my heart, and that's the My Bill that Chris Korsch runs for us. We have a sponsor for this. Amy and Dan Doherty, who own the 2 magazines that New Tracks series is published in, S-Scale Resource and O-Scale Resource, are the sponsors of our My Bill segment. And if you don't mind, Chris, if you could run the short 1-minute video that we have of them.
Welcome to the world of scale, O&S railroading. We are your resource for all O&S scale modeling. Both our magazines are advertiser supported and free to read online, download as a PDF, or even print. All advertisers are hot linked to their website, so if you see something you like, just click. Please check out our websites for the current issues. All back issues available free for the O-Scale Resource and the S-Scale Resource magazines. And, if you are a manufacturer, distributor, or retail establishment, please contact us through our website for advertising opportunities.
And I really do appreciate Amy and Dan sponsoring this section of our shows. Again, not only will the show be on, your models be shown on the show and recorded on our video, but they'll also be published in the current issue of which one of those magazines happens to be after the show. So Chris, would you like to talk about this segment a little bit?
Are you talking to me, Jim, or?
Yeah.
There's like 15 Chris's around here.
Oh, okay. There's only one dealing with my bit.
Okay. All right. Sure, I can talk about my build here for a minute. I will put up the share screen here in a second. All right, there we go. My build featuring you. February 16th is our next my build. To participate, email your photos to railrunner130@hotmail.com. And if you haven't submitted photos in the last month or so, please also include a picture of you, because we're actually putting it together a title slide now. That worked out last month, so we're going to try it again. They're going to keep going with it. But anyway, if you have a project that you need a little bit of help with, or something that you're very proud of, or whatever, please email photos of it to me and we will include it. Please include if you have if it was built from a kid or scratch built, please put that in the email, because that way we can filter it through to the S-Scale and O-Scale resources a little better that way.
Yeah.
So I'll turn it back over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Chris. Really, what I'd like to try to be able to put in the magazine is a photo or two or three or whatever you have of your model. I'd like to have your name. I'd like to have a photo of you. And I'd like to have a description of what we're seeing in the photo. If it's a built kit, fine. If it's something you scratch built, fine. What are we seeing in the picture is what I'd like to be able to put in the magazines. And of course, your email. The magazine will give you a separate email so that you're not divulging your email to anybody. But I need your original email so that it can be linked to the one that the magazine will provide to you for any comments that modelers may want to make about your model. So again, if you can send Chris your photos of your models that you want to be shown, description of what we see in the photos, and then your name, then that will get in the magazine, as well as be on the show that Chris will show to everybody next Wednesday. So thank you so much, Chris, for doing this. Now I'd like to turn to Paul Thompson for our quick tip of the evening. Paul?
Great, thank you, Jim. Tonight's quick tip will be somewhat of a tip and somewhat controversial, perhaps. I thought I'd put this up because it's a bit of a learning experience for me too, although I've been through this before. Now, if I can just share screen. Okay, what you're seeing here is a brass locomotive screw from a locomotive that I bought used and was going to do some repairs and modifications on. As you can see, the screw looks pretty good. It appears to be a Phillips, which would mean you'd be using this kind of a bit. And there were 4 screws to remove on this particular project, and 3 went great. But the 4th one looked like this. totally stripped. Whoever painted the model had totally stripped the screw, putting it back in. So how do I get it out? As you can see, there appears to be a small ridge right about where my cursor is, if you can see that. And I thought to myself, okay, what have I got? I have a screwdriver, a regular screwdriver, held at this angle, biting into that one little piece that I managed to get a bit of a grip on. Here's a close-up of what I was actually doing. This is the screw. I'm not putting it back in the locomotive to show anybody. I had enough trouble getting it out. But as you can see, it just gives me a little bit of a purchase. And then I swung the screwdriver around as you would a wrench. I didn't turn it like a screwdriver. I swung it 360 degrees. And fortunately, the screw wasn't in hard enough, and I managed to back it out enough so that a conventional little bit of a gripper would do it. As you can see, I used a pair of pliers to finally pull the thing out. It's not easy, and it's something that we all sort of face now and again, the stripped screw, and that's one solution. And one of the reasons I put this up tonight was maybe there's somebody that has a better idea on these small screws. And that's what I'm hoping. Step forward, guys, and let us know. Thanks very much, Jim.
Well, thank you, Paul. That's really useful advice because I know I've run into those kind of problems many, many times. Thank you so much. Next, we have our special segment, Art of Detail, that Darryl Jacobs, who owns NRHSA Hobbies, does for us. But Darryl can't be here tonight. So we have his video that he wanted to show for this evening. So Chris, if you could run the video, please.
Hi there. Today we are going to build this cool little O-scale detail from NRHSA Hobbies. It is our kit O5033. It is comprised of laser-cut basswood and laser board parts. It goes together quickly once you have everything painted. Start by cutting all the parts free of the carrier sheet. Score the tabs on both sides to make them easier to remove and clean up. Sand the little attachment nubs flush with the part's edge. This will make assembly much tighter and cleaner. These double-sided nail files are very handy for this type of work and are available readily on places like Amazon. To make painting easier, take a strip of double-sided sticky tape and apply it to some scrap wood for a holder. Then stick your parts to the holder and get ready for painting. A good way to make your plastic paint palettes last longer is to wrap them in tin foil. This makes it easy to remove and dispose of hardened paint. Don't forget to remove the door frame on the front face panel. It will make it easier to paint and to install the clear glazing layer. Now cover your exposed surfaces with a primer coat of white paint. Thinning acrylic paint with a bit of water will make for a smoother finish. You could spray the parts with an airbrush or rattle can primer. Or you can brush it on as we are doing here. Oh crap! Here's an idea. Let's use makeup sponges to apply a smooth finish with no streaking. Dab a bit of paint on the sponge and blot it on paper or a napkin. With a random dabbing motion, cover the part with paint. Change the angle of your sponge frequently to ensure better coverage. Do not saturate your sponge with paint. You want it slightly dry so the paint is not beating up on the part. Now it is time to paint the other colors over your nice white canvas. Again, thin your acrylic paint slightly with water to make it carry better over the part. Start a bit away from the edges where the color transitions and carefully work your way towards them. This will ensure a clean, straight line. Rotate the part so that you are in a comfortable position and work the paint towards you. Always pull the paint along the line you want. Remember, sneak up on the transition line between colors, slowly working towards the edge. Use a fine brush to fill those tough corners to finish up a section. Taking your time will ensure a striking model that holds up to the toughest scrutiny. Paint the coin slot strip a light tan color. Paint the vent grille and window frame with chrome silver. Finish up by painting the door with chrome silver. Now it's time to glue up the body, layer by layer. Start at the back of the body and work your way forward in the sequence shown. Though there are quite a number of parts, they all add depth and dimension to the finished product. Make sure each piece is parallel to the part before it by squaring it on your work surface. As Clark would say, clean up your glue mess along the way. Sand out any slight misalignments so that the outer panels will seat squarely with the body. Apply a bit of black paint, or use a marker, to black out the area behind the bottle opener and coin return. Now glue the front face panel to the body, as we are doing here. Glue the side panels on both sides of the body. Keep them flush with the bottom and the back of the body. This will allow the top panel to sit flush between the top edges of the side panels. Cut out your graphic panel, following the supplied guidelines. A fresh blade makes this task much easier. Paint the inside corners of the window frame area to block out any light that might shine through seams. Give your glazing panels a quick wipe to get any fingerprints or dust off the front surface. Cut the door and window glazing free of the carrier sheet. Hold the window glazing by the edges. Use a sharp point to catch the edge of the paper backing. Then pull the paper backing free. Insert the window into the opening in the body and set it flush with the inside face of the front panel. Insert the graphic and glue in place from the back side of the graphic. Now set the door glazing panel in place without any glue. Then apply some glue to one or both edges of the door and glue in place. Applying a small amount of glue, only on the door edge, will ensure that you don't get any unsightly glue squeeze out during installation. These fine micron pens come in various nib sizes and colors. Use them to mark the outline of the push button and coin slot. If you want to blow people's mind, use a white, pre-wired, 12-volt micro LED to light the signage and bring the detail to life. Insert the LED into the slot in the body to the right height in the window opening. Fold the wires over when you have the right height, and tack the lead wires in place with some glue. Make sure the LED lens is shining towards the front of the machine. Then tack it in place as shown. Test your LED and check for any light bleed around seams and edges. Now button things up by gluing the top panel in place. Now, stand back and admire your work. Then find a special place for your masterpiece on your layout. We hope you enjoyed following along. If you learnt one thing, then we are very happy. Thank you from Interaction Hobbies. Keep on modeling.
I really do appreciate Darryl showing us that. And like Al Collins told us last week, the details sure do make a hobby. And it's obvious that a detail like this would really bring a scene to light. So again, I really thank Darryl for sharing this with us this evening. Now I'd like to turn to Paul Reeves, the owner of Kershaw Models, and Martin Breckbiel, who is the builder for the build along of Paul's kit. And Martin, I'll introduce you first and let you take it from there. Thank you so much for doing this.
I guess that was my introduction. Okay.
That was your introduction, Martin.
Wow. One of the more low-key introductions I've ever had. Okay.
Well, we could have had a band, but
No. Let's put those days behind me, please. How's this? Does that look okay?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Try something different here. If I get this out of my way, it would help. There we go. So this is building the Kershaw Models Stanczack Bar and Grill. It's going to get renamed somewhere towards the end to something completely different, but it'll still be a bar and grill of some sort. This is part 2 because part 1 was the introduction some weeks ago when I showed the basic pictures of what the model builds, as well as a bunch of tools and ideas and thoughts and things that you might want to have on hand to build the kit. So we'll move on from there. Yeah, supplies and all. So let's put this thing together. It's not too terribly awful, I think, or challenging. So this is a good kit for people to get started on without, it's not a major investment in effort. So we've got instructions. They're not the most detailed instructions. They give you a lot of room to wander around and get lost if you're not careful, but there's good pictures and it's a good flow of stuff. So, you know, as I said, it doesn't hurt too much to read through the instructions. I mean, it's not going to cause you too much pain, and it's probably worth doing. I confess, I'm rather pain adverse, so I don't actually read them usually and just make it up as I go. But one of the nice things here, we've got color-coded wood strips. So you know, when it says, when in the instructions say, grab a 2x4 or a 2x12 or a 2x10, you can pick up the pile of wood, which is rubber band together, look at the color, pull out what you need, and keep going. You don't have to actually measure stuff. And if you want to do it with your scale ruler, well, by all means, measure it and have fun. But, you know, try to trust what the builder or what the vendor gives you. It's probably right. Okay, so you want to locate, lay out all the basic walls, free them from the background, all the laser cutting parts, and identify, yep, that wall goes there. This kind of wraps around here. That looks like the back wall. That looks like the upper part in the back. There's the front. And this is probably the front step. And there should be a door that fits here on the angle. If you go back and look at the instructions, it shows a built up version of the kit. So it's just a matter of, well, let's just put all these pieces together. Well, it isn't quite that simple. There are bracing templates here on to keep things from warping. And corner posts, and you can tell who's which and which one goes where. And this is the little bump out section. It's cardstock. You know, that stuff that's on the back of your memo pad. That's basically all this is. And there's one piece missing, sadly enough. The other one like this one. Well, you know, notes of both notepads, backs of notepads. I have a whole box of these, a cardboard box of these things. They're worth saving. So there's a quick tip for you. But save these things. You may find them useful someday, and they're good to paint on and do all kinds of fun stuff on. And they're completely disposable because you were going to throw them in the recycling bin anyhow. And well, in my case, I throw them in the fireplace, but you know, they're useful. So the bracing keeps things from warping, supposed to be. I really didn't worry about that too much, I confess. I skipped the bracing because it's 16th inch thick clapboard, and I haven't really ever had any of this warp of any significance, particularly after I've anchored the ends with these pieces, which are the corner posts. So once they're attached, it's pretty stable, actually. You really don't have too much problem with that, things wandering around too much. These two here become important. And I'll say they're important because I took them back off after I glued them on, which was surgery. It took a 2 or 3 number 11 surgical scalpels to cut those away because I put those on there because it's end grain, a little bit of goo on the end grain, some CA on the other piece of wood, put it together, and it's not coming back apart, except when you take it into surgery and cut it apart. I didn't like the way this was coming out with the doorway. I didn't like the way it fit. And I thought, I think we could do something more interesting, a little more better that might fit here a little smoother. But basically you want to put together a box. You've got 4 sides. It's a box. Put together 2 pieces, glue it together, put together the other 2 pieces, get them at right angles, 90-degree angles. I had a piece of a steel iron angled to true things up. Use a square, use a mini square, use whatever it is you like to use, a block of wood, get it square, and you can pretty much eyeball it actually in many ways. We're going to leave these posts here for now because they're not causing us any problem. We'll trim those later. But the important thing is I took this back off. You can continue on with what was there, or you can do what I did. I think that looks better, but you know, opinions are what they are, and they're worth what they are worth sometimes. Yeah, the back of the box, you've got more excess corner posts. You know, there's another piece back here. It all goes together pretty neatly. And we're going to take these off later, and we're going to trim them at an angle that matches the roof angle. And then we have to go across here with a sanding block to get a nice bevel on this so the roof fits down flat and even, and it doesn't, don't have an unsightly gap here on the sides, because that's where it'll show if you don't do that properly. Okay, the front door. Here's what I did with this front door. I took the larger corner post material, that was the bracing material actually, I think. There's the plastic door casting. I put the door into the frame using some 10X methylene chloride directly, just paint it together and it welds nice and tight. You can use other glues if you like. And then I glued these pieces of wood to the back of the frame and then put a bevel on the back of them. Just eyeballed that with a piece of, oh gosh, 100 grit sandpaper stapled to a 2x4 block. It's O scale, you can use a large 2x4. It doesn't hurt too much. And then you get this to a point and test fit it, and you can get it to meet that corner opening. So I think the corner opening is one of the neat things about this kit. And it's what caught my eye, because there's other structures with corner openings I wanted to play with, and this one seemed a good way to get started on that. And I think this is actually turned out fairly well. And you drop it into place, put in the front step, and now you've got an interesting entryway with a nice pair of posts on each side that really present it rather imposingly towards the street or sidewalk, whichever you have, or whatever you plan to have on your layout where you would put this. And I think that came together fairly decent. Except there's this thing called a hole right above it. Then you have to fill that. You know, and we have to fill that. And the kit provides a piece of triangular piece. I just grabbed a piece of 1/32 basswood sheet off my out of my scrap box. That's another important thing to have in your shop is a scrap box. Several of them, in fact. So I have all the scrap flat basswood stock in a scrap box. I have another tub of strip wood. I've got another tub of scribe siding and clapboard. You never know when you need a little piece of something, and it comes handy. Instead of cutting a 6-inch by 2 foot long piece, and you want a little piece like this out of it, you go and get your scrap box and yank a piece out, and save yourself the trouble of snipping a square inch out of a board foot or so. So, and you see, I've put a second floor or a roof in, or a ceiling in, or a floor, depending on which side of it is. It's a ceiling on this side. It's a floor on this side. So this actually stiffens everything up and makes sure it's square. It also points out some other odd things about this little structure that you have to kind of like turn a blind eye to. There's not much room in that second story for a full-size person. So I don't know what lives up there, maybe children, maybe dwarves. I'm not sure, you know, hobbits. I'm not quite sure what goes on up there. And you'll notice I didn't leave a stairwell for them. So they're not coming back out to get us unless they climb out the window. So we'll figure that next time. But it does block some light flow. And that's one of the things one of my pet peeves on structures I see on other people's layouts. You come out and look at it and you can look right through it, look out the backside or through the downside. You can look through it and there's all this empty air. Just you got to have something in there to fill out the view through the structure. And that's where I'm going to stop for this week, because I'm out of gas. And I was up to 2 o'clock in the morning watching the half pipe last night, so I'm tired.
Well, Martin, I appreciate so much you doing this for us.
We got any questions? I don't know. So I'm going to stop sharing and
excuse me, Martin, just a quickie.
Yes.
What you used white glue on the corners as well? Did you have any problem with
corners
bleed out or leakage? Or
no, I didn't use white glue on the corners. That's
okay.
That's
what?
the goo CA.
Ah, okay.
The goo
much
goes
easier
on
to control.
Well, some people will, when you say the word goo, they run away screaming because they think it all squirts out of the tube at the blink of an eye. But with a delicate hand, you can really control the flow of that. And if you have, actually, I have micro tips for using it, but I never do. It's easier just to be gentle with it. Think of it as the most volatile toothpaste tube in the planet and squeeze gently.
Well, I found keeping acetone handy for
that'll work too.
emergencies is a big help.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for starting fires too in the neighborhood. So, okay. Anything else? Anybody? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing then.
Martin, thanks so much.
No problem. We'll catch you next week.
We will see you next week, sir. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn to our featured modeler for this evening, Stephen Elliott. Stephen is the owner of a hobby store in California called Fundemonium. He's also a board member of the National Retail Hobby Stores Association. And he is a friend of Mark's, who also has a hobby shop not too far from his in California. So Stephen, thank you so much for being here this evening. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome, Jim.
Listen, let me start this off by asking you to tell us a little bit about your store, when it started, why it started, so forth.
Well, this will be our 18th year come June or so. And we first opened in another town called Petaluma. And about 8 years ago, we moved up to Roanoke Park when our lease expired. So we, down in Petaluma, we were only about a 6,000 square foot store. And the whole concept of our store was always to be something for everybody. So I refer to our store as a joy store. So it's a combination toy store, game store, hobby store, train store, as well as a family entertainment center. We've always hosted birthday parties and all sorts of events and classes in the store. So the concept was, it wasn't a place where you would just shop and go. It was a place where you'd come and stay and play. And we invited people to hang out. So when we got to the end of our lease in Petaluma, we went from being 6,000 square feet to 14,000 square feet. So we have a huge amount of room. As you can see, this is a picture of the store behind me, shows a majority of it. And it's pretty wide open, spaced apart, easy for people to move around. And what's not so visible in the back of the store, though most of your folks would be most interested in this, we have an operating train layout in the store, O gauge and HO. But then in the back of the store, we have game rooms, party rooms, classrooms. We have an indoor radio controlled RC track. We have an old school wooden slot car track. So we have a lot of things going on. It's the name Fundemonium is meant to be pandemonium, but fun. And pandemonium, the word pandemonium refers to a wild and crazy uproar. So we're a wild and crazy uproar, but all fun. So,
well, you know, what intrigues me about your store is it hits so many buttons that I hear modelers talk about. Number one, they're model railroaders, basically. That's what my show is all about. but they're involved with other hobbies, and they're getting more involved because of the animation that they want to do with the RC people and the servos and the linkages and the knowledge that that market has. They're expanding into military modeling because of the painting, primarily the shading of the modeling that they do. The military modelers, all of the different types of hobbies that are out there, model railroaders in some cases seem to me to be discovering for the first time. It used to be not that many years ago when we talked to model railroaders, we would talk about their scale. And if you didn't talk about their scale, they really didn't know what to talk to you about. Now they're not only interested in talking to people of any scale, but also of almost any hobby. And your store seems to cover a wide range of hobbies that I hear people talk about.
Even kids' toys, which is kind of odd. We've got teething rings and baby toys for newborns, all the way up to $1,000 RC cars. So we're kind of cradle to grave. But a good point that you make there, Jim. If there are any other hobby stores on your show right now, or folks who might come see it later on, is the concept of diversification across multiple hobbies. If you're a business owner, if you diversify into multiple hobbies, that helps you weather any downturn or loss of interest in one hobby or another. And for the hobbyists, the people that like RC cars or trains or whatever, going to a hobby shop that has a diverse selection will open you up to new ideas and new concepts you may never have come across before. A good example is we have two different modeling groups that meet at my store. One is the International Plastic Modeler Society, and those guys are really into military hardware. And then the other one is called Wine Country Modelers, and those guys are mostly into hot rods and custom cars and things like that. Well, the two of them never really saw eye to eye, but eventually at one time, the car modeler said, how do those guys building the tanks assemble all those tiny little parts and get all those little working arms and things moving? And then the tank modelers and the IPS looked at the car guys and said, how the heck do you get those things so shiny looking? And next thing we knew, they started getting together and sharing ideas. So the diversity is good.
Well, that's exactly what I'm hearing from model railroaders now. I heard it from Mark when he was on the show. Mark, one of the things that Mark said is, you carry things that he doesn't even think about carrying in his store. So he has no problem whatsoever in referring his customers to you. And I understand you don't have any problem referring your customers to him if it's model railroad stuff that you don't carry in your store.
Yeah, and it's all about taking care of the customer.
Yeah, and to me, people living in the community that you're in out there, they've got the best of all possible worlds, because between you and Mark, if you're a model railroader, you can cover just about anything that you ever thought about needing to have between the two stores.
Yeah, and one of the other important points, at least in the relationship with me and Mark Pogendorf, is I focus a little bit more at the kids and the beginning modelers, the entry-level people. Mark is, he will do great things with kids and beginners, but he's focused a little bit more on the serious experienced modeler. So it's a natural transition that I get people started, and I've got no problem after I've gotten them started to say, you know what, you've kind of outgrown me, move over to Mark and he'll take you the rest of the way. And they'll always come back from time to time for things, and that works out.
What do you see in the newer modeler, the younger modeler, the modeler that in effect you're catering to? What kind of an individual is that?
We have a lot of younger, well, I say younger kids, but it goes up into college age and even young adults as well. But they start with scale plastic modeling. Maybe a little bit on games and collectibles as well. So there's certain miniature-based war games that really combine scale modeling, painting, and gameplay. But a lot of them start in scale plastic modeling, and they start with a type of model referred to as a Gundam. and that's a Japanese cartoon show of flying space robot suits. And right now, that's just the hottest thing going for younger people building models. The older modelers, say in the IPMS that are into the military hardware, they're lamenting, oh, nobody's building models anymore. Nobody cares. And I tell them, oh, they care. There's a lot of new young people coming up building models. It's just to them, the Gundam Wing RX-78 is the new Tiger tank. And you just have to realize you have to get them hooked on a fun experience. And then they'll start growing and expanding their repertoire to look at other opportunities. So that kid building the funny little space robot today might be moving on to doing a full train layout in a couple of years.
Well, that's interesting because I never really heard anybody talk about it from that standpoint. But because, you know, most of the people that I come in contact talk about, well, you know, we need to attract younger people into model railroading. Well, it may be that what we need to do is let the young people find a modeling situation that they prefer, and then once they've gotten hit on modeling, then worry about the model railroad part of it.
Yeah, I would say what you need to do is attract the young people into creative, hands-on modeling of anything, whether that's snapping together Legos or wrenching on an RC car or building a scale plastic model. And from there, once the passion's lit, they're just going to start spreading out.
And from my perspective, that is, I'm concerned about losing the skills that have built the hobby that I love, model railroading, because people aren't necessarily building the models today that they used to do when I started learning.
Mm-hmm.
But what I hear you saying is the skilled model railroaders, the skilled model RC builders, the skilled whatever, they can be mentors to these young kids coming along, even though they're not building a model railroad at that point. The same skills apply. I mean, they're going to have the same modeling capabilities regardless of what they're building.
Yeah, detailing, weathering, painting, assembly, that spans just about every hobby.
And so from my perspective, having people interested in those hobbies on the show, as long as they're willing to be a part of the mentoring elements of it, I'm all for that, because to me, I see more and more people now expanding out of just pure model railroading into other hobbies because they're finding skills in those other hobbies that they've never thought about before.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I've got a couple of customers. One jumps to mind in particular because I'm just blown away by him. He's an N-scale modeler, and he's building radio-controlled N-scale cars to drive around his layout. He got tired of the idea of cars on his layouts being stuck on a particular road, and he said, I want to make a radio-controlled one. And the itty-bitty little cars, radio-controlled, but they're driving around his train layout. And
see, I would be interested in having the person that can do that on the show, because I know that there are people out there that want to do that. I know that there are farm modelers out there that want to see tractors on their farms move through the fields rather than just be stationary tractors on the layout that they are building. So I know that that interest exists, but finding those people is difficult for me. That's why I'm trying to start this hobby shop segment on my program, because it's the hobby shops who knows these people who can help share that knowledge, if you will, about what these people are doing in the other various hobbies around the country. So from that standpoint, for me, your association is important for my show, because your association has the hobby shop owners. And the hobby shop owners, or the hobby store owners, are people. That's where I learned an awful lot about modeling. I used to go in the store and either talk to the owner, talk to one of their employees, or talk to the other customers and get my questions answered.
Yeah, that's one of the key values that a hobby store is going to provide versus online. So like what you're doing here with this show is great. You're recording it, you're putting it up on YouTube so people can learn a lot by seeing that, but it's not quite the same as getting face to face with somebody and having that discussion, maybe handing pieces back and forth to take a look at them. And that is a real service and a value that the hobby store provides.
I agree. That's exactly why I'm interested in the segment on that Mark is going to be doing for me about hobby shops and the modelers. Because what I hear, both from hobby shop owners that I've talked to, I've had 5 different ones now. You'll be the 6th on my show. A lot of the things that they're saying, hobbyists are saying. I mean, it seems to me that we have an awful lot of interest together in success. You know, if we support the local hobby shop, you benefit, but we also benefit because you have the knowledge, you have capabilities that we need, we have capabilities that you need.
Yep. And especially for a hobby store owner, the most satisfying thing for me, or maybe not the most satisfying, but one of the most valuable things is when I encounter that customer that says, I really like this. I want to do more. Can I start a club at your place? Can we do something, an event at your place? Can we run a seminar or a class at your place? And when that happens, I'm all for it. And I'm like, yeah, let's figure it out. Let's make this happen. In fact, it's not train related, but we just this month had a customer come in. He likes a style of radio control car driving called drifting. And it's driving an RC car where it's sliding around corners. It spends more time sliding sideways than going forward. But it's almost like figure skating with an RC car.
Yeah.
And he just said, I'd really like to do this. And I got a couple of friends. Can we set up a night to do it? And, you know, what would be involved? And we got it going on Monday nights. And we went from just 2 or 3 people showing up and talking about it to about a dozen people last Monday, all sliding cars back and forth across my store floor.
Well, see, that's the kind of thing that I hear that modelers are interested in. They want to be able, they want to have a place that they can go and get information, that they can meet other modelers that have the same interests that they have, that they can share information, that they can learn from each other. I hear from modelers that they like the hobby shop owners to provide them a space for clinics, for meetings, for get-togethers, if you will. And you're doing that. You're doing exactly the kind of thing that I hear the modelers say they want from a hobby shop owner.
Yeah, and we love doing that. The one thing I would ask modelers or hobbyists to keep in mind is the store owners love to do that, and we often will try and do it as much low cost as possible. But you realize if a store owner is holding aside 1,000 square feet of classroom to do these kinds of things, there has to be a way to back them up on the expenses and costs or actually even make it profitable. So absolutely. A lot of times folks will just say, well, I want that space. You don't appear to be using it right now. I want to use that space. And it's like, well, I'm paying a lot for it right now and it's not being used. So let's work something out.
As far as I know, free space is a thing of the past. So
yeah.
So I think everybody understands that. It's just a question of, does the hobby shop owner, understand the needs of the hobbyist? That's where I'm trying to get to here. And what I hear from you and from the other hobby shop owners, you understand us. I'm not sure we understand you totally. I'm not sure that there's a place, and I'm hoping at some point your association can be that place where the modeler and the hobby shop owner are together, where they can talk like we're talking now, where they can exchange what their needs are, what their wants are, desires, and try to figure out a way to get together. Because right now, that forum doesn't exist anywhere.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm glad you brought that up. I know that was part of your proposal a month or more. I guess it was before the holidays, about having me come on as a representative of NRHSA to talk with you. Right. And we are taking a look at that at the NRHSA board of directors. And it's a matter of working out the logistics or the mechanics of doing something like that, because NRHSA was formed as sort of a business to business organization, a place for store owners to talk with each other about the challenges of running a store and solving those store related problems. So it's not necessarily that we want to see our customers seeing that part of it, watching us make the sausage of a hobby store. Nobody would want the sausage then. But I think you've got a really good point that there should be some sort of forum where we can get the input from customers, and customers can understand what store owners are trying to provide, so that we can find a way to serve the customers and keep the store owners alive. So,
and I think it's a two-way street too. I think that the hobby shop owners have to understand what the modeler, what the hobbyist is looking for in that hobby shop, and why more hobbyists are going on the internet rather than going to their local hobby store. Because you make a valid point about the value of being at the local hobby shop, and that you don't have on my show, because it's not touchable. Like, you can't touch and feel the merchandise or anything. But at least it's a step to try to get to that point. So the hobbyist isn't interested in trying to learn how to be a hobby shop owner. The hobbyist that I know is interested in trying to have a point of view where the hobby shop owner understands what their needs are, where they're coming from, how their hobby may be changing from the way it was in the past, and where they're going in the hobby, as well as the hobby shop owner wants to hear from the hobbyist to how they can make more money.
Yeah. It's I mean, any really good hobby store owner is going to be constantly soliciting input from their customers, asking opinions, things like that. But there are hobby store owners out there that are just a vending machine. They stock their shelves, they have their counter, they sit in there and they just wait for people to come and hand them stuff. And if that works for them, it's America, you can do whatever you want. But that's where we've got the broad range of hobby stores, and we've got a broad range of hobby customers. And some of them just kind of want the give me the goods and I'm gone approach, and as cheap as possible. And there's going to be a segment for that. But then it's a matter of connecting at the other end, the hobby store that wants to provide a really personal premium experience to people, and finding out how you can hook up with the kind of people that understand and value that kind of experience.
And the modeler really, that I'm talking about, he's a 12-month modeler. He's interested in coming in June and July and August, and not just at Christmas time or a holiday kind of situation. And his needs are possibly different than the person that just wants to come in, grab and leave. Because he enjoys he needs the help. He needs experienced sales force, frankly, in the hobby shop that can talk to him. I've been in hobby shops where you walk in and ask a question, and they say, "I'm sorry, we don't carry that." And you can see it sitting on a counter, 4 feet away. So it's just, that's the situation out there. But I do think that modelers have a role in your association. I'm not sure how to do it. I've thrown it out. I've talked to Rod about it several times. There's just no place right now where the modelers and the hobby shop owners are together talking. And to me, when I hear the problems that hobby shops are having about not getting product, of manufacturers in effect cutting the price on them, where they can't compete on a price, where the manufacturers are encouraging modelers to sign up for their email list, and by the time a new product is sold out, the hobby shop owner may not have even been notified the new product's ready to be shipped. So their customers, unless they're on this mailing list from the manufacturer, being a hobby shop customer gets them nothing in that case. Well, hobbyists don't necessarily know that, or know all of the mailing lists that they need to possibly get on. Well, the hobby shop has that problem, so do modelers. And those are the kind of issues that, to me, are just natural for hobby shop owners and modelers to be able to talk about and try to figure out how to deal with.
Yeah. And NRHSA started in that, doing almost exactly the same thing between the hobby manufacturers and the store owners. That whole idea of let's talk and figure out how we can work together. But then I like your idea of saying, all right, let's take the next step down the road and now get the hobby store owners and the customers talking the same way. So
exactly, because the manufacturers have their viewpoint. See, from my standpoint, when I started trying to figure out how I could try to, from a mentoring standpoint, try to help modelers today have the same kind of experience or close to the same kind that I had when I learned how to model. And going to local hobby shops was part of that experience. Knowing the manufacturers in a lot of cases was part of that experience. That's why NewTracks is a member of the Hobby Shop Association, because they have a place for modelers to join their association. And when I found that out, I thought, well, why doesn't the Hobby Shop Association have that same capability? And I understand about the business aspects of it and so forth, but I'll give you an example. You heard me start the show tonight talking about Walters and their program for scholarship for high school kids. I think that's a wonderful idea. As far as I know, Walters is the only hobby manufacturer that does that. There may be others. I've never heard of them before. So I asked the hobby manufacturers to consider that kind of a program for the association, because I think it's a wonderful program. Between offering kids a scholarship, an education, if they're in the hobby, if they're hobbyists, and then combine that with the Professional Model Makers Association, which could provide them a career in life as a hobbyist if they want to stay in that field. To me, that's a wonderful reason. That's two great reasons why people should become hobbyists.
mm-hmm. I really liked when you sent me that link to the Professional Model Makers Association. I hadn't seen that group before, but I really liked it. And I think they might have a good template for what we could do to achieve what you're looking for, where they've got that public membership level. And, it's only a few things that are on the public side of the wall, but it's enough for them to at least kind of see what's out there. And then the professionals have the other side of the wall where they can deal with their sensitive stuff. So
exactly. And from my perspective, it's not the sensitive stuff that I'm interested in, but the knowledge base that they have. If a model railroader, for example, is having a problem with 3D printing, there are people in that association that can solve that problem in a heartbeat. And from my standpoint, they provide such a great tool for modelers, and modelers provide a future workforce for them. I mean, where else can they find the skills and so forth that people have developed over 10 years or 15 years of modeling, other than model railroaders, model aircraft builders, model car builders? I mean, they've got the skills that these professional companies want.
Yeah, I've got where I'm located in Northern California, just a little north of San Francisco. Your members may or may not know that's where Lucasfilms started. And of course, the primary corporate offices are right up there, 10 miles away from me. So I know a lot of modelers that worked on the original Star Wars or Disney cars and things like that. And those guys aren't being allowed to retire because there's not enough modelers coming up the ranks. It's like, you can't retire. You're the only one who knows how to build this. And the guy's saying, I'm done. I'm tired. I want to go lay on the beach. And it's like, nope, can't do it. So.
Well, it surprised me when I found out originally about the organization. They had a national contest last 2 years ago, and they had 167 entries, not one single entry from the United States. And the reason for it is that they're convinced is there's no university in the United States that has a modeling program. They have them in England, they have them in different other countries, but not in the United States.
Mhm.
So in the United States, if you want an entree into professional model making, it's basically through a hobby.
Partly that, but I would throw out there, and this is my personal experience, because I started my career, I started my higher education as an architect. And if you're talking with kids and you want to get them interested in building models, designing things, learning the artistic, creative side of things, suggest they study architecture. That is a much better liberal arts education than liberal arts. Studying architecture, I learned things such as contract law, project management, electrical engineering, plumbing, mechanical engineering, as well as every single semester, we had to build 2 or 3 models of our designs. Every couple of weeks, we had to come up with a design. We'd have to build a model to take to a jury and explain what we were designing and why it was a good design. And so I was a modeler before I went into architecture, but I think the reason I chose architecture as a profession is because I like to build the models. So if your kids are saying, gee, I'm not sure what to get into, or you're thinking, how can I grow the interests of people who like to build models, maybe suggest they study architecture.
That's great. I've never heard anybody talk about that before, and I've never thought about it. That's a wonderful point. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What do you see as your main business problems going forward?
I've been very fortunate lately. I can't hardly say there's big problems, but if I back up and maybe partly put on the hat of the National Retail Hobby Stores Association member, I think the biggest challenge right now, industry-wide, manufacturers, store owners, customers, is working on these relationships to keep the environment for hobbies and modeling healthy. Right now, we're in a very kind of fractured time when we've got manufacturers and distributors trying to figure out how to cut out the stores quite often, just go direct to the customer. We've got customers that are also maybe saying, well, I can go to direct and I can get it for a much, much cheaper price. Why do I need the hobby store? But then they realize there's some value there to the hobby store. But by then the hobby store is on its last legs, or it's going out of business. So we got to work on that relationship. That's why I like what you were proposing is, okay, you have the Hobby Manufacturers Association working on the relationship of the manufacturers. NRHSA working on the relationship of all the store owners, and a little bit NRHSA and HMA are working together. We got to pull the customers in there and build up this mutually beneficial, respectful kind of relationship that'll work for everybody. And partly on that is when I take a look at the spectrum, I had mentioned before this sort of spectrum from you just get it and you get it cheap versus a really great premium kind of experience. When I'm trying to explain this to people, the way I often refer to it is I'm a fan of craft beer. Yeah, I'm out here in California, and a nice IPA craft beer I really like. And for a while there, one of my favorite beers was available in multiple places. I could go get it at the local discount warehouse store. I could get it at my favorite neighborhood market, or I could go and get it at a brew pub. And it was interesting because at the warehouse store, it was like $3.50 a pint for this beer. But the warehouse store was big, cold, dirty. There was always long lines. They had 12 checkout registers, but only 2 checkers to run the lines. And so it was a hassle to go in there if you wanted to pick up a beer. The only reason I ever stopped in there was it was convenient on my way to work. I wasn't really that concerned that it was a low price, but it was like, or I was on my way home. I didn't drink on my way to work, but on my way home, it was okay, long day, I want to have a beer, and I know I'm out, so I'll stop into this place and get a beer. My local craft market is a really nicely laid out market, nice store. A lot of the employees in there I know by name, very friendly place, nicely designed. But that same beer there is now about $5 a pint. And but that's where I shop most of the time because I so enjoy that experience of shopping in that particular store. And of course, the brew pub, when I want to treat myself, now you're looking at $8 to $9 for a pint, but you're going into a nice place, you're sitting down, someone's coming over and waiting on you. They're bringing you your pint in a chilled glass. They're making sure you're happy and asking if there's anything else that you need to do. It's the same beer. And I'm paying anywhere from 2 to 3 times the price for the exact same amount of the exact same beer. And the only difference are the people in the local store or the people in the brew pub that are servicing me. And I think once you start to understand that approach, you get a better understanding of the spectrum of hobby stores, that they all need to exist. You need to have the low price warehouse store, but there also needs to be the higher end premium service where you're really pampered and treated well when you go in there and shop for your hobby supplies. And then one other cautionary thing that I'll throw out, the hobby store owners have their own private Facebook group where they discuss issues. And of course, unfortunately, every once in a while, the issue comes up of, oh, have you heard this store's closing? Here's another store closing, and laments and things like that. But that store owner who was closing his store, I think said something about his closing that was probably the most crystal clear, succinct explanation that I've ever heard. He was a successful store owner. It just got time for him to retire. And someone said, oh, it's such a shame that you're closing. Well, nobody wanted to take over the store from you. And he said, well, we tried. We had a couple people who looked seriously, but they just couldn't pull it off. And then he said, in order to do it, you really have to find somebody who has a passion for the hobby, who wants to work hard for very little gain. And then at the end, he said, it's been a 15-year job and it's time for me to do something else. So that crystallized for me the dilemma of a hobby store owner is nobody wants to buy the business because it's not really that great a business. Because if you're going to be a hobby store owner, the mindset, which is the problem, is the mindset. It doesn't have to be this way. But the mindset is you got to really love what you do because you're going to work super hard and you're not going to make much. And at the end, too many hobby store owners, instead of being a business owner, just own their job. And when they get to the end of their job, the hobby shop goes away. And that's something I'm really passionate about trying to find a way to fix.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I hear the same thing about people who have spent a large part of their life trying to build a small business called model manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a nice product line that they've worked their hearts out for a lot of years, probably in their basement or in their garage with their wife doing the books and the kids helping and everything. It's a family deal. But trying to pass that business along, trying to find people that'll come on and take that effort and everything that and all the goodwill that's been built on the years and pass that on to somebody else. They can't find somebody that'll do it.
Yeah.
And it's partly because the small hobby manufacturer that I consider to be the real soul of our hobby, at least model railroading, and I'm sure it's the same thing in other hobbies. You got to love it. I mean, it's not something that you're going to become a billionaire overnight with doing. You've really got to love it and fight for it to be successful. And there seems to be less and less of those people coming along.
Yeah. And NRHSA, the National Retail Hobby Stores Association, is trying to help with that we just launched, and I'm on this committee as well, an education committee. So the idea behind the education committee is running monthly training seminars for hobby store owners so they can learn how to be better business people, to build a better business that's going to serve them well and allow them to survive. And I think that kind of education, if there was a public facing customer one, might be worthwhile as well. But right now we're starting with, let's train as many hobby store owners as we can on how you can do your business better so you have a better chance of surviving.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% because it's obvious that there are hobby shop, there are model railroad manufacturers that are not what I would call business people.
Mm-hmm.
They love the hobby, they love what they're doing, but they don't look at it as a business. It's a hobby still. They make some beautiful products, some fantastic things that a lot of people love to have in the hobby, but they're not creating a business. So yeah, that kind of an education for them, I think would be worth its weight in gold. Is it available right now? Not that I know of from anywhere.
Yeah, we're just getting it started. We had our first seminar last month. We have another one coming up. And again, this is just for members of the National Retail Hobby Stores Association. But once those store owners start learning how to make their businesses more successful, then you're going to start seeing healthier hobby stores and more, hopefully, hobby stores. People saying, hey, this is a viable business. I don't have to be a martyr to produce, to have a hobby store, or HMA is watching what we're doing and they're interested as well doing it for the manufacturers.
You know, I hate to say this, but until I started talking about the association, the National Retail Hobby Store Association on the show, I never heard of it before.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that the hobby shops had an association. Most of the train stores, hobby shops that I've had on this show are not members of the association. Why they're not members, I don't know. I haven't really gone up and tried to find out, why they're not members. I told Mark when he was here last week, I said, you're the first one. The other hobby shops are not members of the association.
And I browbeat him until he finally gave up and said, all right, Steve, leave me alone, I'll join. So
that's what he told me. But the point I'm making is I'm not sure how well known your association is. I'm not sure the publicity that your association is getting, because I'm not sure that the hobbyists know the concerns that the hobby shop owner has, that if he doesn't work with him, if he doesn't help him, then if he wants to see him go, that's the best way to see him go. Just ignore him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. And historically, I started going to the National Retail Hobby Stores Association annual show probably 15 years ago. And back then, there were a pretty solid group of model railroading manufacturers that displayed at the show, and hobby stores that carried significant portions of model railroading supplies as well. In fact, the president of our association right now is primarily a model railroader himself, and that's his core business. But radio control kind of came along and took over and swamped almost everything else, even models, scale plastic models and all the other things were getting kind of pushed back for the radio control. And this year, NRHSA is making a concerted effort to start trying to bring back model railroading as part of NRHSA membership for model railroading stores, and get the model railroading manufacturers back on board as well. It became kind of one of these self-defeating cycles where the model railroad stores said, yeah, it seems like it's all RC companies there. Not much is being paid attention to the model railroad manufacturers, even though some of them were there. But then the manufacturer said, you know, we're not seeing very many model railroad stores. And so both sides just started dwindling. This year at our annual show, we're making a big push for model railroading manufacturers to be part of the show. I don't know the details on it, but they're looking at discounts or incentives to get the model railroad manufacturers to display at the show. There's going to be a huge garden railroad tour as part of the show. It's in Las Vegas, so it's a nice outdoor tour. And I went on it many years ago, and it was a great experience because we visited maybe at least half a dozen exquisite outdoor garden railways. So NRHSA knows that something's gone wrong in the model railroading side of the industry, and we're trying to bring those stores and those manufacturers back into the fold. And the next logical step is also go after bringing the customers in.
Well, I'll mention this to you. What I hear is that there is a disconnect between the small manufacturer, small in any hobby, I would say, but I'm talking specifically model railroad. There's a disconnect between the model manufacturer and the hobby shop about who gets paid what.
Mm-hmm.
And how does the hobby shop manufacturer help the hobby shop by having a pricing situation where both of them can make money, and that doesn't seem to be there right now in either the hobby shop owner's mind or the small manufacturer's mind, at least the people that I have talked to about it. I keep hearing things about one internet company that for $29 a month, they'll advertise my product, they'll sell my product, they'll collect the money for the product, they'll send me my share of the whatever the deal is, and that's all I got to do is just sign up for $29 a month. So I said, okay, how about if you pay a hobby shop $29 a month? Would you do that? And what would the hobby shop have to do if the small manufacturer paid the hobby shop $29 a month? What would the manufacturer get for that? And what would the hobby shop do for that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know whether there's a business plan there or not. I have no idea because this is not something that I'm familiar with. But that struck me that if that's the deal of how the manufacturers in the hobby are selling their product, then if the hobby shop owner wants to be able to deal with the manufacturer and sell their product, there's got to be some kind of a program where both of them make some money and both of them see the value in it.
Yeah, I think
I may not be presenting this properly. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the issue of education for both the hobby store owner and for the small manufacturer. The big manufacturers understand this better. But a lot of the people, like you said, they start the manufacturing side, small garage, hobby manufacturing, making parts and things. And what they miss, and this is part of the experience and the business education side of things, what they miss is the built-in margins that need to exist to scale up that product. And if they're really new at it and they're like, this is so super cool, I want to make these and I want to sell them, they're thinking about, well, if I make them and I sell them to the end user, how much money do I want to make? Boom. And they're not thinking about, well, what should the price of this item be where I can make enough money to justify making it. A distributor can make enough money to justify stocking a huge warehouse full of it. And then the hobby store can justify making enough money buying it from the distributor to put them on their shelves. And there was this whole idea that started long, long ago of cutting out the middleman. Well, what happened is we just got a new middleman. It's just the internet website is the middleman, and a lot of people are missing how much money is being wasted, sucked out by that middleman, and not keeping the hobby industry healthy.
I agree. I totally agree. It just, to me, the conversation that I'm trying to have with your association, and the conversation is the same conversation I'm trying to have with the Manufacturers Association. Because where does a small manufacturer go? You know, he can talk to me. That's not going to get him very far, but at least I think I understand some of what's involved here. And I don't sense that the Manufacturers Association has a place, and I don't sense your association has a place. And so the reason I'm having this conversation is I'm trying to find that place where the hobbyist has a voice, where the small manufacturer has a voice, where there's some place where we are communicating with each other for the benefit of our hobby.
Mhm. I agree. And I would posit the small manufacturer, the natural fit would be the Hobby Manufacturers Association, but they've got to kind of broaden their vision away from the huge manufacturing companies that are, you know, going out and having dyes produced in China and producing thousands and thousands of things, to figure out a way to help the small manufacturer step up their game, maybe not to the point of doing container loads worth of stuff, but how do they scale up to where they become economically viable for a distributor or a hobby store to carry their products?
And it'd be their choice. If they don't want to scale up to that size, then they can stay whatever size they want to, and just understand that that's going to be their market.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's perfectly legitimate for someone to say, you know, I love making 100 of these widgets a month. And if I sell 80 of them and 20 of them I'm using for myself and my friends, I'm super happy. That's okay. Yep. But then everyone has to realize they're probably not going to be available to, well, more than 80 people a month. So
that's right. And so maybe those other people that want it, they just can't get it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to belittle this, but I do hope your association will consider working with us to sponsor our segment that we're doing on the hobby shop and the modeler. Mark is doing for us. And I really hope that your association's board gives careful consideration to it, because we're not asking for money from you. We're just asking for recognition, so that we can promote our show more. And again, trying to find a source for the kind of communication that you and I are having right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can tell you I'm on the membership committee, which is meeting tomorrow. And then we have a communications committee and an education committee. And I'm also on those. They suckered me into a lot of roles. But we're going to be talking about that at all of those meetings and trying to figure out which is the best committee to take the lead on that. I would probably think the communications committee, but it has primarily been focused on communications dealer to dealer. But I think there could be a spot where we also do communications of store owner to customer.
Well, I look forward to hearing from you about it, and I can't thank you enough. Does anybody else have any questions or comments or anything for Stephen?
Yeah, Jim, this is Phil at home. So Stephen, I have just a real interesting question, because it strikes me the conversation you guys had misses the kind of fundamental, which is volume is what drives your business, right? So if you've got a product that basically one person buys it a year and you've got two on the rack, your carrying cost for that inventory becomes very high very quickly.
Yes.
And so that applies in a couple of dimensions. I mean, one is there's this long tail of products of low volume. If we come back to the discussion you just had, the problem is if you have n number of model railroaders and 1% wants to buy that kit by that small manufacturer, if you divide those model railroaders by hobby shops, you end up with the probability of selling that kit in a hobby shop maybe as 50-50, right? Because you have to have a modeler in your footprint of your hobby shop that wants to buy that kit. And it strikes me that the bigger problem that the hobby shops have with that set of products is kind of this whole long tail is, how do you sell those products and manage the inventory issues? because it's not just the pricing, it's the inventory issue is just as bad. I've had some conversation with hobby shops about, can you do some shared inventory? Can you combine that to some centralized buying to get the volume discounts that, that sometimes the larger distributors get? Because it strikes me that the challenge that have is as technology allows people to build smaller and smaller volumes, and therefore more and more focused on specific characteristics, it becomes harder and harder for hobby shops to work with that. I mean, one of the other things we talked about, one of the other hobby shops about, was the challenge of buying expensive items like locomotives. A DCC locomotive that's $300. When you buy it, you're buying a specific road name and a specific model, and you have to have a specific modeler who wants to buy that. And so I'm just curious, have you at all thought about how do you manage those issues for the smaller hobby shops? Are there ways to integrate these smaller manufacturers? It may be that you can't really have inventory, but you become a place to buy those things and then pick them up when they come in, or a place where you go see you can go see products, but you just have samples there. And because I know what it looks like now, I can buy it and it shows up in 2 weeks. And it's part, it strikes me that I think the dynamics, the pure numbers of the market make it very hard for hobby shops to carry this volume of products we're seeing. I don't know, does that make sense at all as a thought process?
I think there's two issues there. One, partly the future for the highly customized, boutique, specialized kind of item might just have to be direct to customer via the internet. The manufacturer says, I'm making this, I'm going to have 5 forever in the world. Get in now and you'll get one, or whatever it's going to be. And then the other approach is, I know Mark Pogendorf had mentioned maybe finding a way of doing co-op buying.
Yep.
And the issue there, the larger manufacturers, of course, aren't going to buy into that because they want to have more control over that relationship of who's selling their stuff, and it's understandable. But the smaller hobby stores or the smaller hobby manufacturers might be able to work out that approach, and whether it is a co-op of manufacturers setting up a shared distribution, or a co-op of hobby stores setting up a shared purchasing arrangement. Now, there might be something to work in there, but I just don't think anyone's had the time or the brain power to figure it out yet.
Stephen, could I ask a question about, do you work through a distributor for some of, for instance, radio control models? Do you have a large distributors, or is that part of the marketplace that you deal with?
Yeah, I work, we place orders almost every day at my store. I work with many of the big national distributors like Horizon Hobby, and they own Athearn, and they own a lot of radio control brands, and they distribute a lot of other model railroader products. So I order from Horizon and other stores like Hobby Time and HRP, big distributors. And then there are some that I go direct to. But the difficulty is the ones that I go direct to, about the only time I would do that is if it is a high volume manufacturer. Because when they get to, you're in a situation with, a single purpose kind of product with some of these manufacturers. But in order to make it viable to stock that item, you have to place a $500 order. And sometimes it's just, I can't work through that $500 order in more than 3-4 months.
Understood.
Figuring that one out is the hard part. So.
Well, the business model that seems to be very prevalent in the Southeast where I live is especially model railroad exclusively hobby shops will work on an order basis. We have a large distributor named Walthers, and all of the hobby shop owners, again, small business, they will go after an item that's, maybe it's a locomotive, and 300 units have been produced over in China, and then they're put on the container. They end up at Walthers or some other distributor, and that's how they eventually trickle out to the modelers. But the only way that we modelers can get hold of those is first we have to know when that container's arriving in Los Angeles, and we also have to have a proactive hobby shop owner that will stay abreast of, okay, these units or this manufacturer has finally delivered something, and then we place an order with that hobby shop owner. And then the other benefit is when it finally comes in, and not always does it, but when it finally comes in, then we go and visit that hobby shop, and that's not the only thing we buy when we're in there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But we go in there specifically for that custom ordered specialty item. And more of model railroading is getting to items that just don't ever hit the shelf or very limited production. And I think of locomotives because that's like a specialized area. And usually the production runs are under 1,000 units. So spreading those across North America, and I'm saying that for the benefit of my Canadian friends, which is about 1/3 of our audience tonight, they have to share in those 1,000 units. So we have to rely on our hobby shop owners to be our eyes and ears and order takers to get some of these items.
Yeah, and Mark in his presentation last week, and I do the same thing. We will do special orders for customers. We try to keep an eye. I check every week from all of our, well, not all of them. My wife does the stuffed animals and the Legos and things like that. But I check almost every week from our suppliers for new arrivals, stuff that's on the way, and we try to communicate to our customers about things that are coming. And we'll take a special order. We don't charge extra for the special orders. Sometimes we'll even charge less. We'll discount down to the internet pricing for a special order, because if a customer is going to special order something from us and they're going to pay us for it, we're not having the carrying costs and the expense of having it sit on the shelf waiting for someone to say, oh, hey, I want that. It's pre-sold. It was a special order.
Sure.
So we do that all the time for people. We order from Walthers. Don't do quite enough volume to order every week, but probably 3 times out of 3 weeks out of a month, we place an order.
That's good. That's certainly keeping pace with the way we're working down here in the Southeast. Most shops are minimum inventory.
But Stephen, do you have like a place you advertise that in the shop, or is it? Because I know I talked to my local hobby shop, same thing. I buy stuff from them. I call them up, they'll order it, they'll put it on their next Walthers order. But when I come in the shop, it's not publicized. There's nothing that says, order here, save the shipping, right? Because I mean, if you're buying 2 bottles of paint and you throw it on your order, it comes without shipping. If I go to buy 2 hours of paint from Walthers, I got to pay $7 in shipping, or whatever it may. But it strikes me that the hobby shops don't advertise that and don't really make it, and don't advertise to the extent that as a group you should be publicizing that. You're saying, don't buy off the internet. You can buy anything off the internet from your local hobby shop, and there are 2 or 3 reasons to do that. I mean, 1 is you support the hobby shop. 2, you save the shipping. 3, it probably will get to you in better condition. And 4, you have to make another trip to the hobby shop, which lets you look and buy other things.
Yeah.
Which is good for us modelers. We got an excuse to go back. But it strikes me that you haven't gone out and really publicized that and said, hey, you can buy all these things from Walthers through us and get it in a week and a half. And if you don't need it tomorrow, it's a great way. Anyway, enough said. Thanks.
Now, that's an excellent point. It's something we do, but we don't do it as often as we should. So I've done the marketing, especially around holidays or major new releases or something like that, and say, hey, we place orders with these companies every week. Order it from us. You don't have to worry about porch pirates. You don't have to worry about shipping costs. You got someone who's going to keep it here and hold it for you and make sure that it gets into your hands and all of that. But you got a good point. We put it in our newsletter. Every once in a while, it might show up on our Facebook page, but we need to have bigger signage, especially at the railroad section that says, you don't see it, we'll get it, you know? And make it a little more obvious that we can do that.
You
Anybody have-
mentioned, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, you mentioned that you have various groups come in there. We have a local hobby shop. It's only a few blocks from me. They're into wargaming, military modeling, radio control, and have every paint and airbrush supplies and 50% of what I model. Also, they stock electronics, such as these Arduino equipment, which are becoming more and more popular as part of the railroad hobby. They just don't stock trains yet. However, my local group, which meets monthly of 40 to 45 railroad modelers, gather. It's an NMRA event. We are looking for a place and are now negotiating with this particular hobby shop for two things. One, to be able to use the space that the war gamers use on Monday and the RC people use on Wednesdays and Fridays. And he's got, I don't know, 1,000 square feet and some chairs, tables, and has various groups there. So we're going to try to squeeze our group in there. That's the first effort. And the second one is use him as custom ordering of model railroad equipment just to get him started. He's not ready to commit to keeping holiday trains for the kids in his shop yet, but we're in the process of negotiation and just getting that dialogue going. And by using okay, we're going to order through you, because even the radio controllers use the Walthers and other distributors. So we have that line of communication open, and I think we're going to be able to make a go of it for ourselves to have a meeting there once a month, and for the owner to be able to increase his volume of model railroad related stuff. Because like I say, we're in there, we're buying the paint, we're buying servos, we're buying Arduinos. Just a matter of, gee, let's put an N scale locomotive or some O scale cars in there, just to get it started.
Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know if he has the room, or first off, let me say, tell him to join NRHSA and come to the show in October, because we're going to have more model railroad activity, and he can probably learn more. And the RC suppliers and all of the rest are going to be there too, so he can satisfy his current.
Who knows? It's fairly, for our area, this is central North Carolina, near the capital. He may already be a member. Good. But I'll probably be in there before the week's out. I'm very short of paint for a project, and I'll go in there and shoot the breeze with him.
What's the name of the shop?
It's called Hangar 18 in Raleigh, Cary, North Carolina, Cary. Hangar 18. And he's
okay. I'll look it up on our membership list, and if he's not, I'll just send him a polite email.
There you go. I'm sure he's on there. I don't know if they have another store opened yet. They were talking about that, and they have moved twice recently to just get bigger and bigger facilities. I think he's up 5,000-6,000 square feet now.
Cool.
And looking to add some more so that he can put a bunch of old railroad guys in there, about 40 of us once a month. So we're always looking for another meeting room. We can put everybody.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love the idea that you're going to start having club meetings at his store.
That's what we've been trying to do. Back in 20 years ago, we actually had that. We had a local hobby shop who's no longer with us, rest his soul, but we had our meetings there. Mm-hmm. And we've just been, over the years, we've just been moving this group from place to place, and we lost our last meeting room at due to COVID. We used to meet in a nursing home, so that was the end of that. But we're hoping to find a location, and what better than a hobby shop?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, that train layout behind me, the way that came into existence was a local model railroad club. And this is many years ago, nothing to do with COVID or anything like that, but they just lost their home. They had a space that they were being allowed to use, and they were building a permanent modular railroad in that space. And they lost their home and had to move it all out. The president of the club at that time came to me and said, "Hey, Steve, could we meet at your store?" And I said, "I'd love to have you meet at my store." And he said, "And you know what? To keep us busy and active, because we can't work on our main layout because there's no place for us to permanently put it, we will build a layout for your store as long as you just provide the materials." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And that train layout behind me has been operating for over 10 years now. So, yeah, so that's a great way to build that relationship, that what's the word? Collaboration between the club and the store, and then that'll just grow things. I'm hoping this year, we used to every year have a train show inside the store. And it wasn't like the traditional train show where there was a lot of vendor selling going on, because we didn't have the room to have layouts and selling. But we would fill the store with layouts all over the place, and the public would just flock in because everybody loves to see a running train. And we would have 3 or 4 layouts of almost every scale going. And COVID has kind of shut that down the last couple of years, and I'm hoping maybe this is the year I can bring it back.
Excellent.
Well, going along those lines, Stephen, I have a question here, and that's on the train shows that now that COVID's kind of, I don't want to say winding down, but we're starting to say, I'm going to go to a train show or whatever.
We're figuring out how to live with the situation.
Live in the COVID era, whatever you want to call it. But but it's starting to, the train shows are starting to come back, like Slim Rails. We just got done, and they were in a shopping mall along with a gun show right next door. So and they had probably, I think it was 40 some odd layouts in that area. But my question is, for your organization, are you considering trying to go out to some of the train shows, like the larger ones, say like the National Narrow Gauge Convention, or would there be too much of a conflict with manufacturers for that? So are you looking at maybe trying to go to some of the smaller ones and somehow get the word out? I'm just trying to understand if there's something that we as modelers going to that level should be doing to help you.
So what you're asking there about the shows, we do have a little bit of a presence going on there. It's not super formal, but there are a couple of members in NRHSA that are primarily model railroading stores. And one of them's a big one. I don't know if you guys know Nassau Hobby, but the owner of Nassau Hobby, which is in New York, big train store, big mail order, model railroading, is the president of NRHSA right now. So he goes to a lot of the train shows. And there's another one, Fred's his name. He's out in California here. I think it's Whistle Stop. And he goes to a lot of the ones out here on the West Coast. And a lot of times when they go to those, then they get reimbursed for doing a NRHSA booth and having a booth there. It's kind of odd. I mean, it's not a problem or a conflict, but the customers, the public, sees a booth about a hobby stores association. They go, "Oh, well, I'm not a store. That's not for me." So we got to figure out how to say, no, but come in and find out where's the nearest NRHSA store for you, how we can help connect you with stores. And that's part of the NRHSA education program that we're just kicking off, is we want membership in NRHSA to represent something like Mr. Goodwrench, a good housekeeping seal of approval or something like that. If you've got a hobby store that's a certified NRHSA member, that means they didn't just throw down a check to join the organization. They had to jump through some hoops and show some competence that you can rest assured that you're dealing with a high quality hobby store. So that's our goal. That's the vision. And then it would make a real big sense to go to all those trade shows and say, if you're a train store, you should join NRHSA. Here's how you can join NRHSA. And if you're a train customer, you should shop at these places because we're training these people to be the best, highest service you can get. So
That's the kind of discussion you need with the modeler. The model railroader needs to understand that and understands that they need to be able to support the hobby stores that are members of the association and that are trying to accommodate them.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm quite frankly kind of thinking of the modular type of clubs, because they tend to show up like the modular clubs that I'm in. We have ON3 and HON3, so 2 sets of modular layouts, but we do probably 4 to 6 shows a year where we have both of those sets of layouts going. So you have, basically 12 layouts being set up, and we're doing everything from the Colorado State Fair to national narrow gauge conventions and things. As for your organization, I'm wondering if it would make any sense to reach out to some of the various higher quality modular layout clubs to see if maybe working out some sort of a deal with them to sponsor information to push the NRHSA people when they're at the shows. Because I can tell you, when I'm running trains, I get probably 20 questions an hour on where can I buy XYZ that people are seeing.
Where can I get this? And yeah, you can say, I know a great shop. Let me.
Yeah. And if I could say, well, in what area are you from, and pull out a pamphlet that has, maybe a 4 or 5 state region, because oftentimes there's people I'm in Colorado, or used to be, but we would have people, down here in Arizona, we get Colorado people all the time coming in, and Texas and Wyoming, and some from California. So it's if I had a pamphlet that had the stores by given area that I could pull out of my pocket and say, these are the hobby shops that we would probably be buying from. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that would help, but I'm just trying to say, it's another level, another venue to reach the everyday modeler to shop at the stores.
No, I think that's a great idea. I even wrote that down. NRHSA collaboration with train show layout displays. I was scanning through the participant list here as well to see if I recognized anybody from NRHSA hopping on there. I know that for sure there'll be a few that'll come watch the replay, but I'll bring that up as one of the points at our next meeting, probably again in the communications meeting, maybe the membership meeting, because that'd be a great way to get member stores as well. They go to the train show, they see the people that are running the layouts promoting NRHSA stores. And they're like, hey, I should be a part of NRHSA store. So I get these people promoting me too. So,
something else a hobby shop might consider doing. The hobby shop right now, if they recommend to the NMRA a member and he joins, the hobby shop gets a piece of that membership fee. Well, how about the hobby shops doing something for the modeler that brings in new customers?
mm-hmm. Yeah, that might be we've done things like that before, where we've got loyalty programs for customers that shop with us. And if they sponsor or sign up, get somebody else to sign up, then we'll say, all right, you're earning that person's rewards as well for the next year or something like that. So there might be some things, and maybe NRHSA could help promote that idea amongst the store owners too.
And what you're hearing, at least from the people on the show tonight and so forth, and my comments. This is why I think there's a real potential here. And I think that there's just a disconnect between the hobby shop owner and the modeler. What I consider the modeler, not the person that buys a kit once a year, but the modeler that's in it 12 months a year and really is a committed.
That's what they do to unwind sometime every week. They work on their models. Yeah.
Absolutely. They're there for the long haul. And if they find a hobby shop they want to do business with, then they're there for the long haul. And they get to know each other, and then they're communicating, and then they become customer. Right now, it seems to me there's such a disconnect between the two groups and there's no forum, there's no place that the two groups can go to get together. And that's what I'm trying in my own small way to try to create here and have Mark lead it. That's why I want to do the special segment. I think that could be really important, at least to try to get some communication going.
Yeah. No, I think there's some real promise there.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Just a question. Is it just an American association, or can Canadian hobby shops be part of that?
We do have Canadian members, and Canadian hobby stores are welcome to join. Yes.
Thank you.
In fact, I think the leader of our membership committee is a Canadian hobby store owner.
Stephen, I had a hobby shop from Canada. I think about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, somewhere. I lose track now because I do this once a week, and I lose track of when people were here. And I asked him that question. And he point blank said to me, no, we're not allowed. Canadians are not allowed to be members. So there is a disconnect there, at least.
That's definitely a communications problem then, because we do have Canadian members. Yeah.
So that's the only Canadian hobby shop I've had. But I specifically asked him, and that was his comment. He's in Toronto, so he has a fairly sizable market.
Yeah. If you're comfortable later on, or check with him, if he'd like to have me reach out to him, I'd be happy to send him an email and talk to him about NRHSA.
How about I just send you his email and introduce you by email and let you talk to him from there?
Sure thing.
Yep. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Stephen, thanks so much for being here tonight. I look forward to talking with you again. And I look forward to what your association decides they might be willing to do with us. And maybe we can figure out some way that we can cooperate together.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to talk to your members.
Thank you so much. Well, that's it for our show tonight, guys. Next week is our My Build. And that's the one that Chris Quartz leads. And we've got Andy Kinney, who's going to do one of his Andy Op Corners. And Martin Breckbiel MMR will be back building the Kershaw Models. So it should be a great show. Thank you so much for coming. If you have not gone to our website and subscribed, please do. newtracksmodeling.com. Tell your friends about us. And if Clark Cooning is here, I will now turn it over to him for the after show.
Looks, Jim Clark's not here. He might be stuck in barbed wire on one of the borders. Don't know.
Well, then it looks like you're going to have to put up with me for the after show again. So does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to start out the after show with?
Well, thanks again, folks. I got to go check in on my store. It's only 6 o'clock here in California, and we're still open for another 3 hours. So I really enjoyed my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Vern here.
Yes, sir.
I got myself a new toy this weekend.
What was that?
Can you say it?
No.
No. I'm holding it up to the camera.
Chris, can you share it for him? I don't see anything.
It's not switching over to, oh, there we go.
There you go.
There we go.
Good gosh, what on earth is that?
That's a mini router.
My God.
But right now I'm trying to work the bugs out of it to get it to run. I'm pretty close. And I'm going to use this for cutting out parts other than my Shoreline CNC. And I've got it set up over here, not running, but just to give you an idea how big it is, I've got a couple of HO scale engines sitting on the thing. This is what it looks like. It's about the size of it.
Wow, pretty tiny.
Oh, hold it still here for a minute. Oh, I'll be presenting some stuff and getting into it as soon as I get it all worked out, cut out some stuff to do some modeling. Just thought I'd give you that advance notice that I do have another toy to play with to show you.
Oh, that's great.
Uh,
That looks like it's fairly large. What is it, about 1 foot by 3 feet?
no, it's probably about 2 feet long and wait a minute, hang on. Got it here on my other computer. As soon as it pops up, I can give you. Okay, the work area, you guys that are into metric, it's 300 by 180, and the spindle goes up and down 45 millimeters. So that kind of gives you an idea of what size area. I think it'd be great for HO to cut out like walls and stuff like that. I'm going to be working on something, a special piece of tooling for that eventually to see if I can do that. People are probably wondering what this thing costs. I got it off Amazon for $240. The whole complete unit. And of course, then you've got to learn the software to run it and stuff like that. But that's not too bad. It's just getting it going if you don't know anything about hooking machines up to a computer. What was the brand name of that again? It's the ComGrow Robo CNC router. You'll find it on Amazon.com if you do a search on it.
Bern, what programming language does that use? How do you learn the program?
It uses Gerbl, GRBL. That's what's on the computer that runs the machine. But I use what was I using? I was using that to transfer. There's many software packages available that will allow you to transfer your G code onto the machine so it'll cut. Right now, I'm still playing with the original software, which is Candle, I believe they call it. GBRL Candle. And that you have to import a G code into that. So basically you will need to learn a drafting program, then you will need a CAM program that'll take that DXF file, turn it into G code, which is then put into the computer on the machine to run what you're going to do. There's a couple of good videos on YouTube on this machine itself. There's one person, she calls herself Aurora Tech. It's a young, very young Oriental girl that shows how to put one of these together, and she does a demonstration run of some stuff on it. So there's one thing these people like to think that these can do. The funny thing is when I read some of the comments on Amazon, one guy asked if he could do a 80% lower. It took me a minute to figure out what that was. Everybody know what an 80% lower is? It's the bottom part of an AR-15 that you finish so you can have a complete gun. And no way will this machine ever be able to do that. You need a Shoreline mill in your basement to do that with. So I got a kick out of that. This machine weighs 16.5 pounds. So if you do anything big with it, like milling something big and you really put the power to it, the thing will dance around on the table. That was one thing that I'd like to get across to people. These are hobby machines. These will not do what your big 2, 3, 4, 10-ton machines do that are made out of cast iron. These are strictly made out of aluminum and screwed together. So the rigidity of this machine is not that great, but it's enough to do small stuff. You could probably mill out stuff like 10,000 to 20,000 thick brass on this. I once I get into it, I'll do a little demonstration on it, and I'll probably have it up on my YouTube channel.
Yeah,
So
but for a hobbyist, 10, 20,000 brass, that's sizable.
well, 20. I worked on it. Started working on a TT scale caboose, and I used I think it was 32,000 stick brass, 32nd inch thick,
Yeah.
or 32nd, whatever that is. That worked out pretty good. I've got, I don't think I've got that on my website. I also have a website that I post a lot of this stuff on. So, but
If that
that's
was, and what scale was that in? In scale?
my scale that I work in.
No, the one that you said you built the caboose in?
TT scale, it's
PT, yeah, okay.
it's 1/10 scale, 120 to 1. It's a little
And
bit, a little
and
bit than N scale, and a little bit smaller than HO.
And you built that in 32nd brass?
Yes.
Okay, you must have weighed a pound.
No, didn't weigh that much.
You didn't have to worry about it falling off the track.
I think that's the 30,000 thickness isn't bad. They've been trying to cut 1/8 inch thick aluminum on this. But one of the problems with aluminum that a lot of people don't know that try to cut on this is there's many different grades of aluminum. And there's a hard aluminum that it cuts like butter if you have the right cutter. And then there's aluminum that they use, I believe it's used for jig fixturing. That aluminum is very gummy. It's like, if any of you ever tried to cut a frame apart on an Athearn, it's almost that type of a gummy metal like they use on the Athearn locomotive. So it won't handle that. That you're pushing the machine beyond its limits when you're doing that. So that's what I've got to show for tonight after for the pre-show, the after show.
Fantastic. I've never seen one of those before.
There's a lot. Well, I'll tell you what. There's another thing that eventually I'm going to get for this, and I think that a lot of the modelers might be very interested in this. This machine, you can also attach I think it was a 10-watt diode laser, which allows you to cut out material. The only problem with this machine is the fact that you're going to need an air ventilation system if you're burning wood, or you're going to stink the house up.
Yeah, yeah.
So anybody have any questions that come to mind right now? I'll try to answer them.
Yeah, this is Fran. Does the I'm not familiar with the CAM software, but is it easy enough to tell the machine to do multiple passes if you are using like 1/8 inch or 16th inch?
The what you do is I have a CAD program that I draw things up. Then my CAM program is called CAMBAM. It's a British outfit that put this out. You transfer the DXF file to that program, and then you start doing your line, what you want to do, and you put your parameters in, the size of your tool, how thick the part is, how big the piece is that you're going to mill on, and then what you do is you can tell it as many steps as you want to cut into the metal itself. You can go 5 steps, you can go 1 step. It doesn't matter. 1 step, obviously, you're going to be buying a lot of tools because you're going to have a lot of little pieces laying around.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I have to get more familiar with the CAM process someday.
Well, like I said, you need a CAD program to draw up your whatever you want to build. Then you need the CAM program to generate the G code, which then gets put in the computer on the machine. It's kind of a long process. So.
Right, I can do the CAD, and I do 3D printing, so I can do the CAD.
Okay,
But-
well, it's on the same concept as 3D printing.
Yeah.
So,
Was the actual motor, the router motor, included on that price, or do you use your own router?
no, it comes complete. When you get the machine, you put it together and you can start cutting right away. They even send along, if you take a quick look at, you go to Amazon.com, don't even bother signing in. If you just go to it and then your search.
Oh, Phil just put a link in for it in the chat. Is it,
That's actually a link to the company website, not to Amazon. That's actually the company itself.
Yeah, Congrove itself is a company. You could put that in, but I think you can actually, if you just do that on Amazon, you can go and it says there, visit the Congrove store. So you can they actually link to the store, to their site. Now, this machine was put together by a bunch of young Chinese people. They had a picture of them. It was done under a crowdfunding type of operation, and this has been out about a year or so. So, I like it. I like the machine. It's small. It just fits right on a tabletop, and it's going to be able to do what I wanted. Plus, there's going to be 2 other things I'm going to try that I haven't seen anybody do on these yet that I want to try out. And I'm not telling what it is until I try it, in case I fail.
Mhm.
That's
Does
all
it
I
come
got.
with any screw clamps for clamping the work down?
Yes, it comes with those.
Oh, okay, I see the breakdown. Pretty cool.
Got a box of goodies here. This is the that, and you got the this is cut. Oh yeah, right. The screw.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, even comes with a brush to clean off your chips. So it comes with all the tools, wrenches, and stuff like that. So I think the package, if you're really interested in it and want to try it out, I think it's a nice little package. It's about the price of a DCC engine if you really think about it.
Yeah.
So I'll try to get it ironed out to get it to work properly, and maybe sometime down the road, if Jim can fit me in somewhere, or maybe even after a show, I can demonstrate it or do something and show you what I did on it.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let me know when you get it fixed, set up.
It might take a while. These things, trying to find electrical bugs. Now the problem is the code that the machine uses is an open source code, something like JMIR that they use for DCC. And one guy commented to me on it, but that's about as, that's why he doesn't go on it, because it's so open source, things change. Then you try this and it doesn't work. And he said it was pretty frustrating. So, but the support has been pretty good from the company. As a matter of fact, they contacted me because I've been doing a write-up on one of the e-magazines on the internet, and they wanted to know if I would push their machine and I'd get price breaks and stuff like that. And I says, oh, sorry, I can't do that. It's not an advertisement place for your machine. So, but I see what happens.
Yeah, I really appreciate that attitude when they're trying to get good reviews by experts who are really being bribed with merchandise.
The thing is with a lot of these machines is what I've seen on YouTube is I think probably a majority what people buy these for. This thing will actually do like pictures and stuff like that. You get the laser for it and it'll actually do, I don't know what they call that. It'll burn the surface so you get a picture on it. It'll do that. It'll do it on all sorts of different material too. So like I say, if you're interested, just go to YouTube, type in the Robo machine, CNC machine, and you'll come up with a lot of videos on some of these. So
Yep, that's another good rabbit hole, I guess.
Yep. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks.
You did a great job. Let me know, seriously, let me know when you get it set up and want to demonstrate it.
Sure.
Ted, what's for dinner?
Usual answer, I don't know yet. I'll know in about, I know about a half hour when I go in for supper.
Well, Clark usually asks if there's anybody new here that hasn't talked before. Is there? We'd love to hear from you.
Well, this sounds like a good time to disconnect YouTube, Jim. So we have a 20-second delay. If you give your final goodbyes, I'll disconnect in about 20 seconds later.
All right, that sounds good to me. Well, thanks so much for coming this evening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Most important, I hope you learned something. See you next time. And thanks again so much for being here this evening.